or a liar. It's not a vestigial pelvis. Muscles have to attach to those bones because the whales cannot reproduce without those bones. They have nothing to do with walking on land. Absolutely nothing to do. That is propaganda. That's not science. This textbook tells the kids, just imagine whales walking around. It's true. That's a kid's book. That's propaganda. That's a lie. This one says humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use. I did a debate with the president of the North Alabama Atheist Association, and he said, folks, we got proof for evolution. The human tailbone, the coccyx, is vestigial. You don't need it anymore. When it was my turn, I got up and I said, Mr. Patterson, I taught biology and anatomy. I happen to know there are 9 muscles that attach to the tailbone. If you think the tailbone is vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed. Without them little muscles, there's some very, very valuable things you cannot do. I won't tell you what they all are, but trust me, you need them muscles. Now, we can go on a long time, folks, but my point is this. Both views, creation and evolution, are inherently religious. I cannot prove God created the world, and I cannot prove there was a worldwide flood. I can show you the evidence of billions of dead things buried in rock layers. And I can show you that out west, when they killed millions of buffalo in the last 200 years, almost none of them fossilized because they weren't buried. The very existence of fossils proves, to me, is evidence to me of a worldwide flood. When they climbed Mount Everest in 1953, they found seashells by the thousands on top of Mount Everest. I think there was a flood. I don't think the water was over Mount Everest. I think Mount Everest was under the water. The mountains arose during the last part of the flood. The Bible spells all that out in Psalms chapter 104. The mountains arose, the valley sank down, and the water rushed off and probably made Grand Canyon in a few days, not millions of years. So I think the evidence is overwhelming. God made the world. There was a flood that destroyed it, and God's got a plan for you. And He loves you. And if you don't want to believe in Him, that's fine, but He'd like you to. He's not going to twist your arm. But the evidence, I think, is overwhelming, and the evidence for the evolution theory is confused by mixing micro and macro. So watch for that, if you would. Thank you so much.
That was dazzling, to say the least. Can you hear now? I realize I have a small voice, although I'd like to think that I have some reasonably big thoughts. But I'm going to have to sit, and because in order to make a fairly complete, concise statement about evolution and about the problems with Kent Hovind's approach, with his analysis of evolution, I have to read this. Let me start by expressing some reservations I have in engaging this debate at all. I'm a professional evolutionary biologist in that I have taught evolution and related courses here at Wayne in genetics, statistics, ornithology, and a number of other courses for 27 years. And over those 27 years, I've maintained an active research program looking at problems in evolution concerned primarily with the evolution of species diversity or speciation, which is the area of evolutionary biology that is right at the interface between
I just said I had to hold it real close. It's on. Just.
I can try. Is that better? Okay, let me try holding that. I was just saying that my area of research focuses on speciation, which is at the interface between what Dr. Hovind characterized as micro and macro evolution, the distinction as he characterized it between science and religion. But it's important to note that my approach to evolution has always been from a genetic perspective. On a day-to-day basis, my research students and I sequence DNA as a way of getting information about relatedness among species, and we use that information to reconstruct evolutionary history. Our work focuses primarily on woodpeckers, not because these are a particularly interesting group per se, although they certainly are fascinating birds. but because they provide a good model for studying the rapid diversification of species. I'm also very interested in a thing called the molecular clock, which is a novel way of timing evolutionary events and establishing the antiquity of species. Dr. Hovind, in contrast, is a science educator with an interest in paleontology, which is to say the fossil record. So I'm a little bit concerned first that we're going to simply talk past one another to a considerable extent. Unavoidably, the discussion is going to come to focus to some extent on the fossil record, and particularly esoteric details of radiometric dating. That is, dating geological structures based on radioactive decay. And in this sense, you would have done much better to have gotten someone from the geology or physics department than me. Moreover, Kent is a young Earth creationist, which means that he believes the Earth is about 6,000 years old, as he indicated. And it seems to me that the debate boils down to his defense of that notion. This in turn means that we may hardly talk about some of the most interesting ideas in evolutionary theory, the philosophies and histories of science and religion, and the interface between the two. I'm also concerned because this is the first debate of this sort that I've engaged in, whereas Kent is a professional creationist debater. He actually makes his living doing this, which is amazing. Amen. I had the disconcerting experience last spring after agreeing to participate in this debate of receiving a number of email messages and phone calls from individuals and groups who seem to be professional anti-creationist debaters. Somehow word of this had gotten out on the internet, and some of these people seem to view these debates with much the same intensity and decorum as I remember Michigan State Notre Dame football games when I was an undergraduate, or maybe Notre Dame Southern Methodist games, or Southern Methodist Brigham Young games. I'm not sure. And I'm beginning to get that sense from the audience that that's what we're engaging here. It was also clear that the anti-creationists view Kent as the Hulk Hogan of creationist debaters, and that I best be prepared for a real pummeling. At about the same time, I spoke with Kent on the phone. He briefly told me about his belief system, that he was a young Earth creationist. He was very cordial, expressing none of the threatening mannerisms of a professional wrestler. But I was startled at one point in the conversation when he announced that he was going to convert me. So here I am, a novice debater about to get in the ring with an intellectual Hulk Hogan, and if I lose, I must submit to his belief system. Perhaps this is the true meaning of midlife crisis. Well, let me begin to disappoint right away by saying that I don't view this as a debate, but rather as an opportunity to explore some interesting ideas, some interesting cultural conflicts, and certainly Kent pointed to those, and some interesting philosophical conflicts. I also view this as an opportunity to fulfill in a very small way an obligation I feel I have to Wayne State students. I've taught at Wayne many, many years. I know that most of our students, most of my students live at home.